the channel for something a bit different today. You join me in one of my favourite car parks in the UK. I'm at Porsche GB in Reading. So basically over there is the UK's biggest Porsche dealership, at least I think it is, but it's also the home of Porsche in the UK, where they run the importer business. And the car park here is brilliant because all the press fleet cars are here. So many manufacturers hide all their press cars away in a workshop until a journalist asks one, then they stick it on a transporter and they send it out. Here at Porsche, because there's a big IKEA up there and there's lots of foot traffic here and lots of school kids, they leave the cars out for people to enjoy. So you've got beautiful Taycans, you've got Panameras, you've got Ford Fiestas, let's ignore that. Basically, they get kids coming in, taking their photos with the cars, and they encourage it because these cars are good. They should be shared. It brings joy to people's lives, including mine. Look, you've got 911 Hull. That's a really iconic number plate on the new Turbo S. You've got Silver Turbo S. I love it here. It's really cool. And there's usually lots of lovely customer cars as well, so you can see the whole gamut of the world of Porsche. But what I'm here to drive today isn't an electric Taycan, anything like that. It's a car I've wanted to drive pretty much all my adult life. So you're going to join me on a bit of an adventure. Here it is. It's the 911 GT3 RS, the 991.2. It's the green Ford Puma ST I came in, so it's green car day. I don't know what to expect, frankly. I'm just going to take you along for the ride and hopefully it will be quite fun. Let's get cracking. All I've done so far is pull out the car park, and this already feels incredibly serious as a piece of kit. The engine is lumpy, that kind of 4-litre, 520 horsepower, flat six. You can feel its motorsport heritage, which is a euphemism for it vibrates the car at idle. The accelerator has an incredibly heavy feel, that kind of classic Porsche long throw. It's jittery at low speeds. I think this is going to be fun, but it feels, from the moment it rolls a wheel, it feels special, and it feels like a thoroughbred, and I'm just about to poodle around on the road with it, so it'll be interesting to see what it's like as a normal road car. You can only get this GT3 RS with the PDK gearbox, but as in other Porsches, it seems like a brilliant one. It's doing what I want it to do in auto mode. I'm doing 30 mile an hour in 5th gear, just bimbling my way onto the motorway and hoping no one crashes into me. Yeah, it's quite noisy in here, but when you fire the engine up, even with the exhaust in quiet mode, there's quite a blare. Right, we're up to temperature, we're going to hit the motorway, let's give it a bit of a squirt. Oh. Instantly the noise from behind you, it's a cacophony. It takes me back. It sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it takes me straight back to sitting in the forests around the Nürburgring during the 24-hour race, just hearing Porsches howling through the night. And I mean, wow. I think it's a bit opposite today because sadly Sabine Schmitz died last night, and every time I went to the N24 I would see her in the bar in her racing overalls having a drink. So yeah, it feels like the right day to be kind of not honouring her but doing something a bit Nürburgring-y, driving a GT3 RS near Reading. Anyway, I'm waffling, I'm on the motorway. I'll see you in a bit on some more interesting roads. Well, that's ruined just about every other engine for me forever. 9,000 RPM red line. I've got it in PDK Sport mode, which gives you pretty serious upshifts and downshifts again. Harks back to my memories of the Nürburgring 24-hour race and 911 race cars. It's ridiculous. Goodness me. As I've probably said, you couldn't get this with a manual gearbox. And I kind of see why. It's designed to set lap records, not to satisfy driving enthusiasts with heel and towing. It's designed to go quickly round a racetrack. And the manual gearbox would just get in the way, as nice as a manual gearbox is. And if you want that, you could always get the GT3, which has a manual option and did have a manual option. Right, let's give you a walk around and I'll show you the car and then we'll go for a bit more of a drive. So you might be wondering, Tim, what the hell are you doing reviewing a slightly old car that isn't actually on sale anymore? Well, I just like cars, to be honest, and when I came up to Porsche a couple of weeks ago to drive that beige rear-wheel drive Taycan, this was in the car park, and I asked nice people at Porsche if I might borrow it for a day to do a video on it. They said yes, and there's some vaguely tenuous reason about the next GT3 that's coming out soon having basically the same engine as this. So there we go, vague relevance there. GT3 RS, it was £141,000 when it was new. This one is 159 because obviously it's a Porsche, so you put some options on it. It's got 2.5 grand of Viper green paint, and it's got 6.5 grand of carbon ceramic brakes and £230 of optional cruise control, because hey, cruise control is an option. So yeah, going to give you a walk around, talk about it a bit and take it for a drive again and just try not to fall in love with it. Let's be impartial, let's point out the flaws. There aren't many. Now, as we all know, the GT3 RS is the most track-oriented, motorsporty Porsche you can buy. That's why it has a sticker instead of a proper badge, because that's lightweight. It's got knacker ducts like on a Ferrari F40 or lots of planes, and it looks ridiculous. In here, he says, if you can open it, where's the thing? Ah, there it is. That weighs nothing because that's carbon fibre. You've actually got quite a lot of storage space up front. I've got my tripod in here. I can't remember how many litres it is because that's boring. But yeah, that's pretty special. It looks a bit silly, but I like it. The best things in life are silly, aren't they? Things get even more ridiculous down the side of the GT3 RS, and apologies for the terrible framing. They didn't come with a signpost coming out the roof. I just can't really put the car anywhere else because it's too low. You get a magnesium roof, you get carbon fibre reinforced plastic front wing, and the engine covers as well. It's on adaptive dampers, and I don't think you could fit a mosquito's kneecap between the tyre and the wheel arch. It's ridiculous. You can adjust the suspension manually and change toe things and bits and bobs. It's all very complicated. If you're into your track days, you can go mental with it. It's yeah, it looks quite butch, and it's got, you might have noticed, the mother of all rear wings. And yes, it is a wing, not a spoiler. James May once told me that it's a wing if you can fit your head under it. Yeah, I can fit my head under it, and I've got a massive head. There we go. Science. There's not an awful lot to say about the back end of the GT3 RS. I think it's got titanium tailpipes, and that is also a sticker to save weight. But this look, for me, just screams Nordschleife, Nürburgring, and that whole atmosphere. When you see this, you kind of think of saying to your mates, let's race to Brünchen. Last one there's a soggy schnitzel. Now, obviously the whole point of getting a GT3 or GT3 RS is for the engine. You have to lift this up, which is quite heavy. That clicks into place, hopefully. And yeah, you can't see anything, but you have to trust me, under here is one of the greatest naturally aspirated engines of all time. 4-litre flat six, 520 horsepower, 470 newton meters of torque, 3.2 to 60, 193 mile an hour top end, dynamic engine mounts, dry sump. It's basically a race car engine in a road car. It is an absolute peach, and we'll take it for a spin. Hopefully you'll see what I mean. 9,000 RPM rev limit is, yeah, it is mind-bogglingly good, and it's just like a usual Porsche. You can't see any of it, which is a shame. Right, let's do the interior quickly, then let's get back out on the road. Clunk. You might think that Porsche interiors are usually a bit humdrum, but trust me, it feels proper special in here. I mean, it helps that you've got half a ton of scaffolding in the back of the half cage. You've got a really quite dainty steering wheel clad in Alcantara. It is beautiful. It has no buttons on it, no knobs, nothing. It's just you and a steering wheel. You've got the traditional Porsche 5-gauge setup in front of you, fabric door pulls to save weight, the PDK gear knob with green stripes on this. I mean, actually, you've got a Viper green 12 o'clock marker on the steering wheel, which I think is 140 quid. You've got the sports chrono clock on the dash. Lots of optional green bits in this, but the highlight is the carbon bucket seats. My goodness, they are absolutely fantastic. I think of these the same as in the 918 Spider. They're super supportive, super huggy. A bit of a climb into them over the bolster when you get in the car, but it's worth it because it really locks you in place. And if you're taking this on track, that's what you want. Right, that's probably enough. Oh, the infotainment's fine. It's Porsche's last gen stuff, which still works really quite well. It's actually got a CD slot as well. There we go. Actually, one other option I should point out before I go is you can pay, I think it's about 250 quid to have the key painted in the same colour as the car. So I've got a Viper green key. It's a little bit chipped at the tip because you have to stick it in this hole to turn it on. That's what she said. But yeah, this is a press car and it's done 20,000 miles. And otherwise, it feels brand new in here. It's awesome. Right, let's do a bit more driving now. My initial enthusiasm has slightly worn off. You start it with a key that's shaped like a car. Isn't that cool? Foot on the brake, put that in there. Car comes to life. GT3 RS, it says. It is boomy, for want of a better word. Right, how are our temperatures? It's cooled off while I've been doing some filming, so I'm just going to let it warm up for a bit. Take it a bit easy to start with, and I'm going to talk about the handling, the brakes, the steering. Basically, what this car's about is the chassis, but I want to know how it works on the road. Is it too jarring? Is it just a bit silly? I'm going to put the loud exhaust mode on. I've got buttons here for PDK Sport, which speeds up the gear shifts. Sport chassis button to make it firmer. I'm going to leave that off. ESC off, and an ESC and TC off, the full hero button. I'm going to be leaving those alone because this is worth more than my house basically, and on the road you should probably be leaving those things on. I've not had much of a squirm out of this apart from a bit of acceleration in first gear, which did kick the back out even with everything on, so I'm just going to take it easy. It's cooling off outside, so yeah, let's go. Try not to rip the front off on these potholes. The engine is this, I don't know, it's this quite interesting thing. You can feel it warming up in that it's quite lumpy and but after a while it smooths out a bit. See, I'm on a bumpy road with everything in normal mode. I'm not in sport suspension or anything, and it's yeah, it's, you feel it, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Right, gearbox, you can feel it thumping down. Right, we are warming up. You can hear there's no noise deadening in the rear arches, so you hear every stone flick up behind you. Makes you feel like you're in a competition car. The paddles feel lovely. The downshifts are instant, and because you've got that 9,000 RPM red line, you can hang on to second gear for a very long time. So when you come into a corner, if you want it to sound amazing, you can, because you can take it down into second even at quite high speeds. I'm just doing 60 miles an hour in 7th gear. You might notice that I'm having to work to keep it in my lane. It's a firm car, and that suspension, well, it does tramline and it does follow the contours of the road because it's designed for a racetrack. It doesn't actually feel too wide. You get a great view in the mirrors of those rear haunches and air intake, so you can place it really well on the road really easily. It's not intimidating to drive. I have to say though, it's so firm and tied down. When I drove to that filming location, I was poodling along in 7th gear and didn't realise that my speed had crept up quite a bit, and over a crest it was so firm it fully jumped. And I'm like, oh, I did not mean to do that. Right, 90-degree corner. There's shit all over the road, but the traction is immense. Those Cup 2 tyres, although it's only about 12 degrees, are working. The induction noise is what gets you in that engine. You just feel it sucking in the air. It's raucous. It's not quite as hard-edged as an M3 CSL, which wins my award for best induction noise of all time, but it isn't far off, I'll tell you that. The brakes at low speed, you can hear them. It sounds like kind of water rushing around the wheels. Just and they need a bit of heat in them before they start working, these carbon ceramics. It's not like you get in an Audi and they just work. In this, I mean, they work, but you have to push the pedal a bit harder than you think. Right, I'm going to put PDK Sport on and Sport Chassis to see if I lose my fillings. That four-wheel steer, it's working, but you don't feel it. It's not an alien sensation from the back axle. Accelerating over a really broken, bumpy bit of road there, it just hunkered down and went. That's an addictive noise. 3,000 RPM. It's got a lot of torque, actually. That's the surprising thing. Although you can chase the red line, you don't actually ever have to go anywhere near it to go quickly. It just kind of punts you in the back. And obviously the throttle response is as instant as you like. It's, yeah. Everything you touch feels correctly weighted in that typical Porsche fashion. The brake pedal, I know I said the brakes take a bit of warming up, but you can lean on it. And it does a downshift at exactly the moment you expect it to when you're braking hard. It's weird. It's like the gearbox is wired into my brain. I didn't expect to be praising the gearbox so much, but yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It was a real pheasant. Who knew? That's got to be the quickest downshift of any dual clutch gearbox I've ever used. It's an immediate blip of the revs. God, that front axle's got so much grip, but it's just doesn't roll at all. It doesn't lean at all. So it just feels glued to the road entirely when you turn it in. Again, like I imagine a race car feels like. Right, let's see how quickly I can get to 60 miles an hour. Quickly, but it did lose quite a lot of traction and had a little bit of a fit there. Sounded good though. You need to shift up and you've got another 2,000 RPM to go. By the time you get to 7,000, you think, oh, the engine's done. But no, you still got another 2,000 RPM of silliness to come. Lean on the brakes, got the front end in. Here's rapid. Right, calming down for a minute. I think Porsche has always had a problem. I don't think you get into Porsches until you're an adult. As a kid, they'll look the same, they're a bit dull, the power figures are never crazy. And you drive one of these cars, 500 horsepower, doesn't sound a lot, but the way it delivers it in that crescendo at the top of the rev range, we need to take more Porsches to schools or something to educate young petrol heads about why they are so good. Can we get the government to do that? GT3 RS is for kids. You know, you used to collect those vouchers to get computers for schools at Tesco. Maybe we can do a similar thing with GT3s. I think it's worth it. Otherwise we'll have a nation of children that think Audi RS3s are cool. Right, yeah. In short, pretty effing phenomenal the amount of confidence it gives you. It's not an intimidating car to drive quickly. The steering feel is pretty good. It's not the best I've ever felt in a Porsche. I think older Porsches probably have this licked, but the feel you get through your butt and everything else and the control weights all come together. This feels very much like a car that is a lot more than the sum of its parts. It's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Right, anyway, back to you, Tim, for an outro. Try to find something mean to say about it. It feels a bit absurd to even ask the question, is this any good? Yes, it is. It's possibly the best car I've ever driven. Certainly the best modern car I've ever driven. But there's just a lot about it that I didn't really think about when you read about this car in magazines and things like that. There are little things like when you start it from cold, how it slowly warms up over the first kind of 5-10 miles. The engine feels a bit recalcitrant, it feels a bit lumpy, it's got character, and that slowly goes away as you get it out of bed and drag it down the road for a track day. It comes alive. It's got character. I don't want to be a motoring journalist that bangs on about, oh, it's got character, it's lovely. But genuinely, it feels like a really organic machine. The guys that have designed this, the guys that have built this over in Flacht, or however you pronounce it, have done an amazing job. If you can afford one and you're into your track days, you should probably have one already. But yeah, do go and buy one. Don't be put off by the PDK gearbox. It is exactly what you want and exactly what this car needs. If you want a manual for the road, get a GT3. This is very firm. It's not ridiculous, it's not jarring, and it is very well damped, and you can tell the bits under there cost a lot of money. But yeah, it might get on your nerves a bit if you're driving it only on bumpy roads. You need to have a track day or two booked to really make the most of this. But there we go, it's a brilliant car. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit my bell. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Sorry it's been a bit weird and there's been people in the back of the shots and stuff. It's just been really busy. But anyway, see you next time.